Welcome to the Storycraft Society. This week we're going to be crafting the Goblin Bridge, Stalagmites, and ramps from our CRAGMAW Hideout set into your story. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Garmin, and over the past couple of weeks, we've been crafting the CRAGMAW Hideout set from Lost Mine of Phandelver. We started with caves, and then we did tunnels. Both of those videos are linked in the video description below, but now we're ready to put the final touches on this set to get it ready for our players. In that, we're going to be making stalagmites, making ramps that kind of go in between the different sections, and then lastly, our Goblin Bridge, which is the focus for the players when they first come into the cave. The cool thing about these projects is that they are easily knocked out, all of them together, easily knocked out in one afternoon. So let's get to it. Let's get crafting and end up with some cool scatter terrain. All right, so our materials list for stalagmites is going to be hot glue, XPS insulation foam. We're going to need washers of various sizes, super glue, baking soda, Blackmagic Craft base coat, various different craft paints, paint brushes, a hobby knife or an Olfa knife, a file or sandpaper, and then the plastic mini cup lids that we used in the bushes video. So we're going to take one of these and we're going to cut out our little disc just like we did for the bushes. You're going to end up with something like this. Then we're going to take washers. For this one, I'm going to make it 2 stalagmites, but you could easily just make it 1. But since I'm doing 2 on this one, I'm going to take 2 washers and I'm going to glue them to the little disc. So once you get it done, this is what you should be shooting for. Now we're going to take our insulation foam. We are going to slice this down and cut out the shape of our stalagmite or stalagmites. In this case, since I'm making 2, I'm going to cut out basically like the overall shape, cut a V out like this. So I start to have 2 shapes, and then I'm just going to slowly, being careful with the knife obviously, cut away to make the shapes of our stalagmites. When you get it to a point that you're happy with it, then you take and move on to the next step. Now what I did was I actually took the lighter and ran it over the whole thing just to burn up any little tiny fringe pieces. It's just faster than trying to cut or file those away. And then I file away all the unnatural edges. Tinfoil ball over the whole thing to get our rock texture. And as soon as that's finished, we're going to take and hot glue the bottom and glue it onto our washer base. All right, so now we're going to take our Blackmagic Craft base coat and we're going to go around the bottom of the foam. The reason that we're doing this is because the super glue will melt unprotected foam, and we're about to put super glue on the base. So once the foam is protected from the super glue, we're going to fill in around the bottom of the stalagmite, and then we're going to use baking soda, and as soon as the baking soda touches the super glue, it will cause it to just be dry, rock solid. So I really like this technique because not only does it maybe add a little bit of weight to the base, it also is a really convincing texture of like dirt piled up around the bottom of the stalagmite, and it dries instantly. Once you're finished, you can just take a brush and knock off all the extra baking soda, which will leave it looking like this. And now we're ready for our full coat of the Blackmagic Craft base coat. So for those who don't know, the Blackmagic Craft base coat is a 50-50 mixture of black craft paint and matte Mod Podge, popularized by Jeremy from Blackmagic Craft. So you're going to want to paint that whole thing and let it dry. And then we're going to use the exact same paint scheme on these that we used on our caves and our tunnels for this set. That way everything is a nice cohesive look. So I'm not going to go into a lot of specifics on what I did here, but if you want to watch a more detailed description of this paint job, you can check out the caves video, which is linked in the video description below. But here I am just quickly going through all of the various steps to get these painted up and looking great. And now nice and easy, we have a great looking stalagmite ready for the table. So our ramps materials list is XPS insulation foam, our Blackmagic Craft base coat, as always, various craft paints and a paintbrush, hobby knife or Olfa knife, and a file or sandpaper. So there are 3 different ramps that we need, but right now I'm just going to show you how to make the one in the Goblin Den, because the technique is all basically the same. So you're going to mark out the general shape of what you need on the cave piece first. And then once you get the general shape, it's just as simple as starting to cut it down to get it to the exact shape that you would like the ramp to be. A good idea is that you want it to be steep enough that it looks good and doesn't take up too much room in the cave, but not steep enough that your miniatures will fall and slide off of it. Once you get it that you have this general shape, you're going to run a file over the whole thing to knock away any unnatural looking edges. And then, you know it, you love it, it's the tinfoil ball over all the available surface area. So when I got that done, I decided that I didn't want to wait for the glue and dirt texture to dry. So I pulled out my lighter just like I did in the pools and streams, and I just went over the top surface to try and wrinkle it a little bit just to make it a convincing dirt texture, and that actually worked great, and it's a lot faster. Now we're going to cover the entire piece in Mod Podge, as we always do, and then move on to painting. So the paint scheme for these is going to be exactly the same as we've done for everything else in this set, because we want them to all match. So I'm not going to go into detail too much on that, but here's just a quick montage of me painting through these pieces. And just like that, we're ready to go with our ramps. All right, Goblin Bridge time. So our materials list is going to be some craft sticks, some black, brown, and green wash, super glue, baking soda, file and sandpaper, and a hobby knife. So we're going to start this by marking out the length of the beams that are going to be the braces to hold the whole bridge together. And once you get those cut out, then you're going to take your hobby knife and you're actually going to scrape off all the edges. We want these to look like rough-hewn pieces of timber that the goblins maybe even broke off of a wagon or something to slap this bridge together quickly. So we're going to just take the time to bevel all of the edges so that they look like this. And then the next thing is running the file over the whole thing to make them not look like fresh cuts, but something worn that the goblins have had in this tunnel for a long time. So right here I actually decided that the ends looked a little too straight, so I just took my hobby knife and went to the ends and kind of clipped them down a little bit so they were a little bit more angled. To me that just looked a little bit more natural and maybe a little more goblin-y. But then the next thing that I'm going to do is take and make the brace pieces that go across the insides and then glue those into place to make the substructure for our bridge. I'm just using super glue here, wait a couple seconds for it to dry, and then it's ready to go. I'm marking just so I know where to put the super glue here when I glue on the next piece. Once that's glued on, we have our substructure. So now I'm going to take some skinny sticks. I just got these at Walmart, and I just start breaking these off into pieces to be the floorboards, the planks that you're walking on when you're on top of the bridge. A little bit of super glue ran on either side, and you can just start laying these guys down. It takes a little bit of time, maybe a little more than anything else in the project, but once you have them all laid down, it looks great. When that's all dry, you should have this. Now you notice all the little frayed ends. I didn't like the look of those, so I actually just took a little pair of clippers and went in and just clipped all those ends off. I still left them ragged. I didn't want them looking flat and well cut, but at least they're not all frayed and kind of splintered. So next I'm gonna take a sepia wash. This one is made by Games Workshop, but any kind of light brown wash would do. And then I'm gonna paint this all over the wood to weather it and make it look a little bit older, make it look a little bit more aged. So now we're gonna take a brown wash. I did this one from Games Workshop also, and use it to simulate the muddy feet of goblins walking across this bridge back and forth. So I just focused on the areas where I think they would walk. And honestly, when I look at this paint job now, I think I was maybe even a little too uniform with it. You can really see distinct lines, but you could make that a little bit more sporadic if you wanted. And then the last thing is I didn't have a green wash, so I just took this ivy green and mixed it with a bunch of water to make a really thinned down mixture, and then put this anywhere on the bridge where I thought that mold and mildew would grow. So in between planks, up and underneath, any place where I would think that it would be kind of grimy and gross. The final thing that I did was I dry brushed over the entire piece with a gray, because actually worn and weathered wood is more of a gray color than it is a brown. But once I got that done, there's my Goblin Bridge, ready for the table. Caves, check. Tunnels, check. Scatter terrain, you betcha. Let's see some glamour shots. Another set complete, and our crafting journey through Lost Mine of Phandelver is moving on. This one turned out so great, and to everyone who's been watching, thank you so much. If you enjoy this content, please like and leave a comment down below, especially if you're crafting with me. I would love to hear it. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't and hit the notification bell. Our videos go live every Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Next week, we're gonna be seeing the exciting conclusion to the Durgtix Doos adventure, but until then, I'll be seeing you.